How's it going, everyone? My name is Matthew Wyatt, and for my presentation, I chose to discuss Alaska Airlines Flight 261. So we'll go ahead and get started. Oops. All right, for the history of the flight, so pretty much this was just a routine flight from Mexico to Seattle with about 2.5 hours of flight time before the crash. But this happened in the year of 2000, early in the year of 2000. And which should have been a routine flight ended up becoming an aviation tragedy. For some visual aid, I'll um, I'll show where pretty much the crash site and things that happened right before the crash. Okay, so to the left we have a 2D flight path, and to the right we have a 3D flight path, so you can see the actual descents. So to the left, pretty much we have shown where the actions took place, what was being discussed, and what the pilots were trying to do before the crash itself. And then to the right, you can see the actual descents and somewhat established climb back to a slow descent, and then a very strong descent down to the crash site. So these are pretty good visual aids to get a full understanding of how the descents took place and how the pilots were trying to comprehend for this loss of elevator control. Okay, for pilot experience, we'll discuss Captain Edward Thompson. He was picked up by Jet America in 1982, which merged with Alaska Airlines in 1987. He was very experienced, having approximately 17,750 hours with 10,460 hours of PIC, and 4,150 of these PIC hours were in the MD-80, which was the aircraft uh, for this accident. So he was a very experienced pilot. This was just a situation where things were a little bit out of his control, and there was not much he could do except for just hang in there. Okay, for the first officer, we have William Tansky. He was picked up by American Airlines in 1985 and got most of his flight time in the MD-80. He had approximately 8,140 hours, with 8,060 of those hours as the first officer in the MD-80. So a lot of experience in this plane. Just again, something that was out of their control. Not much they could do about it, but they did the best they could. All right, for maintenance practices, the FAA was pretty strict afterwards of correcting these maintenance issues and the faulty examinations of all the parts. One thing I didn't notice that Alaska Airlines did was they significantly decreased the time at which the intervals for the maintenance took place on this particular part that failed. I saw that I believe it was normally 650 flight hours got reduced to 8 months, or vice versa. Well, that'll be coming up here in a second. Um, However, though, the C check intervals were done first at uh, 2,500 flight hours, which they were recommended with 3,500 or 15 months. So Alaska Airlines was on board with that. However, in 1988, as stated, it was extended every 13 months. So there was an extension there. And then, excuse me, the average utilization rate of Alaska Airlines at the time was about 3,200 flight hours for each check. And then in 1996, the C check interval was extended to 15 months, which was extending it even more to almost about 4,775 flight hours. So there were some extensions there. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe just because it seemed that there was a good success rate with these parts, so that they didn't need to be checked as often. But something you always have to keep an eye on, because when extensions happen like this, you have accidents, and no one wants that. All right, so for details of the accident, the pilots lost control of the horizontal stabilizer, or the elevator, and this caused an aggressive nose down attitude. And as this progressed, the aircraft gained tremendous amounts of speed and became inverted, which is something you don't want happen unless you are a fighter pilot or in an air show. Um, I have a video that's showing the simulated version of the accident that was done on X-Plane 11 with the audio recordings from the cockpit until about the last 20 or 30 seconds of transmissions, which I thought was a pretty good visual aid. We'll go ahead and play a little bit of it. However, I'll leave the rest of it to you guys to watch. So I'm going to skip it in a little bit, help us out here. So we'll come in right to about here. So this is the first strong descent when they're losing control. As you can see, the elevator is pitching down very aggressively, and this is causing there to be a lot more downforce, causing the plane to pitch down. And we will come in a little bit more, as here it's showing the brackets failure. There we go. As you can see, the plane's right here descending down very strongly. But I'll leave it up to you guys to watch the rest of it, and we'll keep continuing. Inverted's never good, so we'll keep going. Alrighty. The causal factors. So what happened was the excessive and accelerated wear of the accident jack screw assembly Acme nut threads was a result of insufficient lubrication, which was directly caused to directly causal to the flight accident. The laboratory test indicated that unlubricated wear rates, which are much higher than lubricated wear rates, were likely experienced over a longer period of time, and therefore more than just the last scheduled lubricant was missed or inadequately performed. So this wasn't necessarily the mechanic's fault that did the last check. This could have been something that happened over a long period of time and could have been an accumulation of missed checks or inadequate checks. And as you can see here, as I was mentioning before, after the accident, the jack screw assembly lubrication interval was changed from 8 months to 650 flight hours, which is a very dramatic decrease. So this is going to make sure that all of the Acme screws are staying nice and lubricated, and there will never be any, breakage in the actual equipment. This will be assuring that the horizontal stabilizer can stay intact with the flight controls. Here we have a couple pictures showing the wreckage recovery. To the left, there's just some part of the fuselage, maybe the wing, and then to the right was the actual Acme screw that came from the aircraft. As you can see, it is pretty beaten up. So definitely some inadequate checks, if not fully skip checks, were happening, which is something we never want. And then for crash avoidance, according to the NTSB accident report, the safety board believes that the FAA should conduct a systematic engineering review to identify means to eliminate the catastrophic effects of total Acme nut thread failure in the horizontal stabilizer trim system jack screw assembly in the MD-80 and the 717 series airplanes and require, if practicable, that such fail-safe mechanism be incorporated in the design of all existing and future DC-9, MD-80, 90, and 717 series airplanes and their derivatives. Evaluate the horizontal stabilizer trim systems of all other transport category airplanes to identify any designs that have a catastrophic single point failure mode, and for any such system, identify means to eliminate the catastrophic effects of that single point failure mode, and, if practicable, require that such fail-safe mechanisms be incorporated in the design of all existing and future airplanes that are equipped with such horizontal stabilizer trim systems. So pretty much faulty maintenance, which is quite a shame. Two wonderful pilots, and a lot of people on board. It's a shame that people have to lose their lives to this, but that's the risk we take in aviation, and hopefully we can all learn something from this. Thank you very much. These are my references. Thanks for watching.